Interstate 70. Alright, today we are talking about Interstate 70 westbound. It's a fantastic road, just like the eastbound one was. Definitely my favorite, and it's a long way until we get out to this type of terrain. Westbound I-70 goes from Baltimore, Maryland to Cove Fort, Utah, way out by I-15. Thank you for watching Control City Freak. My name is Todd. If you dig this content, please give us a like, and if you're really into it, why not hit that subscribe button? Thanks a lot. Really appreciate all the love you guys have been given since I started. Thanks a lot. All right, let's talk about westbound I-70. I-70 begins here in this parking lot in Baltimore. We see a sign for 70 to 695 in the park and ride. Here's our first real exit with 695, and we see we are now on 70 West Frederick, which right away I disagree with. Frederick is almost kind of a mega suburb of DC and Baltimore both. I would much rather see a bigger city on here, so I would sign this Pittsburgh right from the get-go. Here's one of the more famous signs on I-70, right after the 695 intersection. This sign used to be on the ground, but they moved it up onto a support gantry, I'm guessing because it was probably stolen pretty often. But pretty awesome sign. And we get a pull through for 70 Frederick. 70 wasn't joking, they really mean Frederick. We get this lovely 68 National Freeway sign from 58 miles out. Woo! 68. In Frederick, we meet 270, which I don't think anybody on 70 would be taking if you're coming in the westbound direction. Does make a lot more sense for eastbound traffic. Now we get a laundry list of what I-70's control cities are in Maryland. They're all pretty bad. I would, again, just go with Pittsburgh on the bottom line here. We meet I-81, signed for Harrisburg and Roanoke, which is fine. And now we get 70 Hancock, because Maryland really doesn't want to sign anything outside of Maryland, it seems. And Hancock, despite being a tiny town, it is the intersection with I-68, so I guess they could argue they're doing that. But I'd still say Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's the way to go. We meet I-68, and 70 now is signed for Breezewood. Just where everybody wants to go, right? Here we get a welcome to PA sign, along with some welcome to Pennsylvania 55 speed limit signs. I do apologize for not having this in the first I-70 episode, as it is our first foray into Pennsylvania. So, welcome Pennsylvania viewers and Ohio viewers. Breezewood on the bottom line here, 20 miles away, like Breezewood is the last city on earth. Come on. Here we are approaching the Breezewood Interchange. We get Toll Road West 70, 76, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg. 70 West, follow Turnpike West to New Stanton. You know, because New Stanton, I know that's where the exit is, but come on. Could just say follow the Turnpike West. Here's kind of a fun spot where 70 actually crosses its short segment that leaves the turnpike and then later has a ghost road beyond it. They could just build a cloverleaf here and be done with the Breezewood thing. But of course, they don't and they won't, and we head into Breezewood. Breezewood, we get 70, 76 Pittsburgh, Harrisburg. Wonder why they don't have New Stanton up on there too. But the turn right sign, we do get New Stanton, as if though that's some sort of important spot. Yes, it's where 70 leaves, I'm aware of that, but you know, I feel like 70's got bigger fish to fry you can mention here. I also do wonder about this Penna Turnpike thing. Penna, very weird abbreviation. I mean, you could go Penn, you could go PA. Here we get onto the turnpike. Getting on, we have a choice between East Harrisburg and West Pittsburgh. We meet I-99, and going westbound, we at least get an overhead sign for it, so that's a little bit of improvement. As before, we don't get normal mileage signs on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. We just get lists of exits that are coming up, generally the next two exits. We get our split from I-76, and look at this. 76 West Pittsburgh, Cleveland. That's pretty cool. And 70 for Washington, PA, and Columbus. Awesome to see Columbus on the sign out here. Here's what it looks like to leave the Pennsylvania Turnpike. This is a fun sign. This is kind of a laundry list of control cities and a ranking of how to do control cities almost. So first we got New Stanton, which, you know, should never be a control city. And then we've got Washington, PA. And PA is good enough at least to give us Washington, PA instead of just Washington. You know, Interstate Junction, but probably still shouldn't be a control city. Wheeling, which is a more substantial city and does make sense as a control city. And then finally Columbus, which is undoubtedly a major city and a control city by any possible measure. Here's our substandard New Stanton to Washington section. Again, we've got Washington PA here. 70 and 79 are signed for Washington. Again, I don't know why it doesn't just say Pittsburgh. I know they're both going to Washington, but Pittsburgh is the more important direction in this one. We do now get Wheeling, Pittsburgh, so that's a bit better. 70 and 79 split, and we will now be on West 70 Wheeling. Wheeling 25. I feel like they could probably have Wheeling be the first thing on this and Columbus the second. Welcome to West Virginia. Awesome sign as always. Thanks, West Virginia. 470 is signed for Columbus because that's the way that West Virginia would prefer that through traffic take. Local traffic, sign 470 West Wheeling. Here we go into the Wheeling Tunnel, and we have one exit is for 70, or one lane is for 70, and the other lane is for the downtown exit. Major construction on the Ohio River Bridge as we leave Wheeling and West Virginia. You get a nice Welcome to Ohio sign here. Not nearly as impressive as the one on the Indiana side. Columbus 123, as it should be. 77, of course, has this ridiculous Marietta, and 70 is signed west for Columbus. So I've learned from comments that Marietta is just the southernmost city in Ohio, which in no way should make it a control city. That just is silly. This should be Charleston, West Virginia. We meet 270. 270 has no control cities other than possibly the airport, and 70 West Columbus because we're still going downtown. And here's a nice look at downtown Columbus. I couldn't find any on the main line, so I got up on a ramp and we got a nice view here. Here we're meeting I-71 south for Cincinnati, and we are now on 70 West Dayton, which within Ohio I think definitely does make sense. We meet 675, and 675 is signed for Cincinnati. When we meet I-75, which is heading to Dayton and Toledo the other way, we now get 70 West Indianapolis, which makes perfect sense. Indianapolis, 92 miles away. This is still in Ohio. Welcome to Indiana. They do put an Indiana sign right on the border here, so we get more Benjamin Harrison. In Indiana, we look at our mileage sign. We get Spiceland, Newcastle, and Indianapolis. We meet 465, and as always, 465 has no control cities. Major construction going on in downtown Indianapolis. We get 65 North Chicago, but no mention of 70 and 65 South because of the construction here. Here's a look at downtown Indianapolis from that concurrency. Now we get 65 South Louisville and 70 West St. Louis and the airport. From I-70 we can see the Colts Stadium, which I mainly remember from the Chiefs blowing a 28-point lead in the playoffs when Andrew Luck lived up to his name and fumbled to himself in the end zone. We meet 465 again. This time we do get control cities, but only because this is also I-74. Outside of Indianapolis, now we get Terre Haute and St. Louis. Welcome to Illinois. Wow, Illinois is doing a proper welcome sign this way as well. IDOT's going to IDOT, so our signs are for Effingham and Terre Haute along this stretch at interchanges. Here we come into Effingham for the final time, and we have Memphis, St. Louis for 57 and 57 North Chicago. 57 and 70 split, so now they are signed for Memphis and St. Louis. Here's where we meet I-55 and 270 on the outskirts of St. Louis in the Metro East section. 55 and 70 for St. Louis, and we're approaching the new bridge over the Mississippi, the Stan Span, so 70 leaves what it used to be on, and we get 70 West Kansas City on the Illinois side. We get a city limit St. Louis sign here on the new bridge, but no welcome to Missouri sign, at least that I could find. Here we pass the St. Louis airport, and I've always kind of enjoyed when I've had to change planes in this airport that you can hang out in this gate over here and you're this close to the interstate. You can just look out the window and see I-70 right there. We meet 270, and we are of course still signed for 70 West Kansas City. Cross the Missouri River for the first of two times in St. Charles, Missouri. And now we meet I-64, which is signed for Chesterfield, as it is the other way. Makes a little more sense this time around to sign it for Chesterfield instead of signing it for St. Louis, since we are leaving St. Louis. 70, of course, is signed for Kansas City. And we get out to the between Kansas City and St. Louis stretch. Here is the one sign I'm going to show you. We get Kansas City 200. That's enough of this stretch of road. We're skipping to Kansas City. Here we are in meeting 470 for Lee's Summit and 70 West Kansas City because we're still in Independence here. Here's another look at Kauffman Stadium, which has been a sad place so far this season, and Arrowhead, which hopefully will be much happier. Here, this is just a bridge that I like coming into Kansas City over this hill. nice bridge. Here we meet 435 sign for Wichita and Des Moines, so it is using I-35's control cities, which is what Kansas City generally does, on the Missouri side at least. Here we've got a big junction heading into the downtown loop, so we've got 70, 29, and 35 all going toward the right, and West 670, South 35 going straight. So I'm going to take 670 this time since we took 70 coming over here. We got 271 south of the Paseo. That would be the way to get to 71 and ultimately I-49, which they probably should mention here. And here we go onto 670. We get a good view of the skyline as we drive onto that. On 670, you drive right below the Sprint Center, or whatever it is now. And here we come to the Bartle Hall Convention Center in downtown Kansas City. I've always thought this is kind of cool how it's built right over 670 here. Of course, there is this interchange with I-35 underneath the convention center, which is very hard to see, as you can see here, and very easy to miss, and I have definitely missed this exit several times in the past. Here's old Kemper Arena, which used to be the main arena in Kansas City. But this sign on 670 always cracked me up. We just get 70, 1 mile, but there is no interchange in 470. In fact, there is not another interchange on 670 at all. At this point, you are already committed to dead-ending into I-70. 670 didn't have a Welcome to Kansas sign, at least that I could find, so this is the last time in my home state, so I'm going to jump over to I-70 where we do get a Welcome to Kansas sign. Here's a look on top of the new bridge at the Lewis and Clark Viaduct, and we get this sharp left turn at 35 miles an hour in downtown KCK. Here's a look at the actual curve right here. This exit's kind of nutty, just for railroad yard. It says no non-railroad personnel, but it didn't always say that. I've gotten off of that exit a couple of times just for kicks, and you're just in a railroad yard. It tells the truth. Rock, Chuck, Jayhawk, KU. They changed this already. We have already got 5-time national champs on that sign instead of 2008 national champs. They've already updated the 2022 win. Awesome. Although I do think they should get rid of those Helms championships. Here is the exit for downtown Lawrence, exit 204. And here's as good of a look at Lawrence as you get on I-70. Right after the West Lawrence exit, we've got this sign, which is the only time we see Denver mentioned for the next several hundred miles. Denver 560. Coming into Topeka, we get 7040 West Salina. I don't know why they don't also say downtown Topeka, since Topeka is a lot bigger than Salina, and we're still kind of on the edge of Topeka at this point. Here we exit the Kansas Turnpike, and here's a look at downtown Topeka. 470 and US 75 with no control cities, just like going the other way. Right here officially marks where I always felt like I'm on the road if I'm on westbound 70. Anytime I pass 470, I'm on a trip. 470 could just be a run to Topeka for something or other, but now I'm on the road. So Salina 101, Salina becomes our primary control city here. Here in the Salina area, we get the exit for 135 South Wichita, and you can see that 70 West sign for Hayes. And now we see Hayes is the primary control city here on the bottom line. In Hayes, there are no overhead signs in Hayes, but in Hayes we get 70 West Denver from the main exit in Hayes. Although from the next exit in Hayes, we get 70 West Waukene. So all over the place, really. On I-70 itself, the next mileage sign we get is Lyman. Why? Sometimes it's Denver. They go back and forth. Sometimes it's Lyman, sometimes it's Denver. I'd heard they were in the process of switching all of them to Denver, but there's still a lot of Lyman signs out there. This is kind of quirky. We enter Mountain Time Zone in the westernmost county in Kansas. Always seems weird to me that there's people in mountain time in Kansas who cheer for the Broncos. Just makes no sense to me. Here's the last mileage sign we get in Kansas. We get Burlington 13, Lyman 90, Denver 176. So all cities in Colorado. We cross into Colorado and we get the first mileage sign in Colorado. Somehow now Burlington is only 1 mile closer, Lyman is 4 miles closer, and Denver is 2 miles closer than the previous sign. So somebody's doing some weird math. This is kind of fun. We get mile 419.99 because apparently the mile 420 was stolen too often. Although this picture is from 2014 or so, because I'm guessing this one was stolen an equal amount of times. So Now they just don't have a mile marker between 419 and 421. Here we go, 24, Colorado Springs. We can't even write out Colorado Springs, and that's the only reason we've been signing Lyman this whole time, because of the route over to Colorado Springs. And we just get a next right 24. This isn't even the name of the exit. The name of the exit just says Lyman with no road given. Into the Denver metro area, and we get 70 West Denver because we're not downtown yet. 225 for Aurora and Colorado Springs. Wow, where they actually wrote out the whole word. We're still not quite downtown yet, but we already switched to 70 Grand Junction. 270 for Fort Collins and Boulder. Here's a look at downtown Denver. Meet I-25, the primary interchange in Denver. I-25 signed for Fort Collins and Colorado Springs. We meet Colorado Highway 58 going to Golden, and 70 is signed for Grand Junction, which from Denver definitely makes sense because it's by far the largest city that 70 will pass through for the rest of its route. Here's a mileage sign outside of Denver. We see Grand Junction on the bottom line there. I've always liked this sign, although I couldn't find it in the current street view. It might be gone, which is a shame. But I like this alternate routes to Salt Lake City, 70 or 40, because we're going to be meeting US 40 soon. Could take 70 to US 6, or you could take US 40 now. We come to the Eisenhower Tunnel proper, not the Johnson side, but the Eisenhower side. Here is the dividing line between Clear Creek County and Summit County, and it's also the Continental Divide, so this is the highest point on the Interstate Highway system right here. Here we come to Glenwood Canyon, where there are awesome views. Here in Grand Junction, we get 70 West Utah, so we do get a control state here, 70 West Utah. I like that. I think that's the way to go. That's better than Green River, which is too small of a place. And in Colorado, we get Junction I-15 as the bottom line after we go through Grand Junction. Not the best choice. I'd say Las Vegas should probably be the way to go here. And then further down, we get State Line 10, Green River 76, and Junction I-15. We cross into Utah, and we are now at Crescent Junction 43, Green River 64. Crescent Junction, the only place of any size before that. You can see here that Grand Junction gets one direction, and then Price and Salina get the other. Kind of weird that they have Price. Here is the cutoff for Salt Lake City. If you were to want to take 70 to Salt Lake City, you would get off at 6 and 191 here. Now we'll look through some awesome San Rafael swell scenery. We are in that large 110 mile or so section with no services. And we finally get to the original picture that we started this episode with, and that is fantastic. A little more of the awesome scenery that you see driving through Utah. And Utah is doing the same thing as Colorado. I-15 is going to be the bottom line thing here instead of Las Vegas or anything else. This exit in Richfield, we actually do get a 70 Las Vegas sign. I believe this is the only time we see Las Vegas signed on I-70. Here at exit 1, we finally meet historic Cove Fort, the famous Cove Fort that I only know of because it's where I-70 ends. And we meet I-15. At the very end, we get North 15 Salt Lake City and South Las Vegas, which are what you would expect to see here. All right. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Control City Freak. Let's take a look at Todd's The Way It Should Be. So eastbound I-70, I think it should be Pittsburgh from the jump, then Wheeling, Columbus, Dayton, Indianapolis, St. Louis, Kansas City, Topeka, Salina, Denver, although again I could be talked into Hayes being thrown in there, Grand Junction, Utah, I do love that Utah signage, then Las Vegas / Salt Lake City after you get into Utah. And then once 191 and US 6 leave, it should just be Las Vegas the rest of the way. All right. That was quite fun, all this I-70 stuff. I've loved it. I've had a great time. I hope you have too. My name is Todd. Thanks for watching, and keep on trucking.